Welcome to our latest Wandering Walks of Wonder tour. Today we're headed to Union Cemetery where Kansas City's history rests. Buried in Union Cemetery are some of the most colorful and dynamic characters in this area's history that we're going to learn about today. These men and women not only influenced the future of Kansas City, but helped to forge the westward expansion of the United States. Right here in the heart of Kansas City is one of the city's oldest landmarks, Union Cemetery. It was established in 1857. This peaceful green space became the final resting place for more than 55,000 people, from early settlers and war heroes to artists and civic leaders who helped shape the city that we know today. Union City itself was born out of tragedy, created after a deadly cholera outbreak when the towns of Kansas and Westport that were joined together to find a shared burial ground. That spirit of unity still exists here among weathered stones and time-worn names. Here we'll talk about John Calvin McCoy, who is known as the father of Kansas City. We'll learn a little bit more about George Caleb Bingham, a famed frontier painter, and Alexander Majors, co-founder of the Pony Express. Scattered across these hills and are veterans from nearly every American war, silent reminders of the sacrifices that built this nation. So join us as we explore Union Cemetery, where Kansas City's past still whispers through the trees and every path tells a story. The first plot that we see on our tour is that of William Gebhardt. Gebhardt was a benefactor for what was originally called the German Hospital of Kansas City, which is now Research Hospital. Back in the late 1800s, a group of German-American civic leaders and aid societies in Kansas City organized a hospital association to provide local medical care for any people, regardless of race, ethnicity, or their marital status. They opened the first German hospital in a converted brick farmhouse and then moved on to growing the hospital. By the early 1900s, they had formed the German Hospital Training School, which is later called Research College of Nursing, and graduated its first class within that year. This was the start of a large presence of Kansas City hospitals in the area and one of the first ethically diverse hospitals in the nation. Our next plot is that of Nathaniel Gwynn. Gwynn is notable for being among the youngest soldiers ever awarded the Medal of Honor. He was approximately 15 years old when he performed that act that led to this war. The specific action took place during the Battle of the Crater, part of the siege of Pittsburgh, Virginia, during the Civil War. According to his Medal of Honor citation and related records, when about to enter a charge, he was told not to go in because he hasn't yet been mustered or officially enrolled in the unit. He ignored that and participated in the charge. During that engagement, he suffered severe injuries. His left arm was crushed by a shell and later amputated. Plus, he was wounded, 2 bullets in his right leg. He was later discharged on medical grounds with full benefits. After the war, Gwynn settled in the Kansas City area, where he worked in real estate and became a lawyer. He was also elected to the Missouri House of Representatives, where he sponsored legislation for veterans' benefits. M.D. Wood was a superintendent for the Western Union. It was through him that newsmen made arrangements for the Associated Press and other wire news services. Wood was the jailer for Lawrence, Kansas when William Quantrell raided that community during the Civil War. He locked himself in the jail for safety, but one of Quantrell's raiders found him there and threatened to burn the building down if he didn't come out. He did stay, but nothing happened to the building. John Taylor left England in 1856, landing in New Orleans. He first went to Illinois and then onwards to Kansas City in April of 1857. He joined Colonel Van Horn's 13th Corps defending Lexington, Missouri in the Battle of Lexington in September of 1861 during the Civil War. Taylor was captured, disarmed, and his shoes confiscated. After swearing an oath to never take up arms against the Confederacy, he was paroled and sent home. He broke his vow, however, and rejoined the Union Army to defend Kansas City during General Sterling Price's raid. 4 years after the war, he was elected president of the Kansas City City Council. Elizabeth Sexton Ferguson was a very young heroine of the War of 1812. She was born in Kentucky in 1801 and assisted her mother in molding bullets for American soldiers during the war. She later moved to Kansas City and is buried here at Union Cemetery. Sam Butcher was the city marshal of Westport, Missouri, and a Union Army veteran. He is remembered, though, for his tragic death in the line of duty and service to both his community and country. Born in 1825, Butcher served in the Union Army during the Civil War. Now, specific details about his military service aren't really known, but his contributions to the Union cause are part of his legacy. After the war, Butcher became the city marshal of Westport, Missouri. Westport was a small frontier town that would later become part of Kansas City. During his tenure, he was involved in maintaining law and order in a rapidly growing and often tumultuous community. In June of 1879, at the age of 54, Marshal Butcher was shot and killed in his front yard by two men who had awakened him from his sleep. The assailants, who were William Gossard, a 25-year-old telegraph operator at the Coates House, and an accomplice. The motive for the killing stemmed from a prior altercation between Butcher and Gossard, who had been involved in a buggy collision weeks earlier and had refused to stop when ordered by Butcher. A coroner's inquest revealed that Gossard had pawned his watch to obtain a revolver that evening before the murder and paid an acquaintance to assist in the crime. Nearby is the grave of Alexander Majors. Majors was one of Kansas City's most famous residents. He was an active partner in the Russell Majors and Waddell freighting firm. Most of the goods shipped over the Santa Fe Trail were shipped in Russell Majors and Waddell wagons. In 1850, Russell bought a tract of land just south of Kansas City to use as an operations base. At the height of the freighting business, hundreds of wagons and thousands of oxen were kept at this location. In 1860, Russell Majors and Waddell started the Pony Express, perhaps the most famous endeavor in the history of the West. This Pony Express was set up to help get Civil War news quickly to California. The Express lasted only about 18 months, eventually bankrupting the company. Major's former headquarters, which is now at 82nd and State Line here in Kansas City, is a museum. James Silas Calhoun was the first governor of the New Mexico Territory, serving from March of 1851 till July of 1852. Appointed by President Millard Fillmore, Calhoun's tenure was marked by efforts to establish American governance in the newly acquired territory following the Mexican-American War. Born in Georgia, Calhoun was a Whig politician with a very diverse career. He served in the Georgia State Legislature and also was the mayor of Columbus, Georgia, and held the position of U.S. Consul to Havana, Cuba during the 1840s. Before his gubernatorial appointment, Calhoun served as the federal Indian agent for the New Mexico Territory. In his capacity, he interacted with various Native American tribes, navigating complex relationships and policies during a period of significant transition. Calhoun's appointment as governor came shortly after the establishment of the New Mexico Territory in 1850. His administration focused on integrating the region into the United States. Calhoun's tenure, unfortunately, was cut short when he died of scurvy near Independence, Missouri in 1852. Frank Barnum died at the age of 44. His tombstone reads, "Murdered at Brownsville, Missouri, October of 1876." Barnum was an old-time newspaperman. He was the business manager of Kansas City's second afternoon newspaper, the Evening Star. Barnum's body was found in a pool near Brownsville. The mystery of his death, though, has never been solved, although some still call it a suicide. The Reverend Edward Thompson Perry was a Methodist missionary who played a significant role in the early missionary efforts among Native American tribes in Kansas Territory. In 1832, he was appointed to the Shawnee Indian Mission and School, where he contributed to the establishment and operation of the mission under the leadership of Reverend Thomas Johnson. Harriet Hattie Drisdom Carney holds a significant place in Kansas City's history as a formerly enslaved woman who became a beloved member of a prominent local family and was the first African American interred in this white section only of Union Cemetery. At just 11 years old, Hattie was sold at auction on Christmas Day in 1855 to Colonel Charles E. Carney, a wealthy Irish immigrant and businessman. It is said that Carney purchased her to prevent her from being bought by a man known for abusing his slaves. 2 years later, in 1857, Carney set Hattie free. Instead of leaving, she chose to remain with the Carney family, working as a housekeeper and nanny for their children and grandchildren. Hattie lived with the Carney family for over 80 years, becoming an integral part of their household. She resided in their home until her death in 1927 at the age of 82. Her long life was with the family was a testament to the deep bond they shared, transcending the boundaries of slavery and race. Upon her death, Hattie was buried here in Union Cemetery, Kansas City's oldest public cemetery. Remarkably, she was interred in the white section of the cemetery, making her the first African American to be laid to rest here. James M. Hunter came to Kansas City in 1829. A few years later, he purchased a large farm at what is now Linwood and Main Streets here in Kansas City. He owned and operated an outfitting firm at the southwest corner of Westport and Pennsylvania Streets. In 1857, he deeded 49 acres of land for this Union Cemetery that we're walking around and learning about today. Nehemiah Holmes was a pioneering figure in Kansas City's development, often hailed as the father of the city's original streetcar system. Born in New York, he relocated to Kansas City in 1856 after a successful career in the mercantile business in Mississippi. Upon settling in Kansas City, Holmes became deeply involved in real estate development, notably in the area south of Westport, which was then a separate town from Kansas City. He partnered with Milt McGee to establish McGee's Addition, a significant real estate venture in the city's early expansion. In 1869, Holmes took a significant step in urban transportation by founding the Kansas City and Westport Horse Railway Company. This initiative introduced mule-drawn streetcars, providing a vital connection between Kansas City and Westport, making it easier movement between the two areas. The success of this venture laid the groundwork for the city's future public transportation systems. George Quest was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1786 and was a soldier of the War of 1812. He died in Kansas City in 1877 at the age of 92. Joseph A. Boggs was a Revolutionary War veteran who later became a notable pioneer in early Kansas City. Born in 1749 in Chester County, Pennsylvania, he served as a lieutenant in the 1st Company 4th Battalion of the Pennsylvania Militia during the American Revolution. After the war, Boggs married Sarah Riddle in 1773 and they had several children. Following Sarah's death in 1810, he moved westward, eventually settling near Westport, Missouri, now part of Kansas City. He lived here until his death in 1843 at the age of 93. John and Henrietta Simpson Harris were influential pioneers in early Kansas City, particularly in the Westport area. They arrived in 1832 from Kentucky, initially settling in a modest log cabin on what is now 39th Street and Gillum Road. In 1847, they opened the Harris House Hotel, a popular way station for travelers on the Santa Fe, Oregon, and California trails. Located at the northeast corner of Westport Road in Pennsylvania, the hotel served as a vital rest stop for pioneers, traders, and military personnel. In 1855, the Harrises built a grand two-story brick residence now known as the Harris Kearney House, situated on a ridge just east of Westport. Constructed using bricks molded and fired on site, the house served as their home and later as a residence for their daughter Josephine and her husband Colonel Charles E. Kearney, who we learned about here just a little bit ago. The house did play a significant role in the Civil War, and it served as headquarters for Union forces during the Battle of Westport. Josephine Anderson was the 14-year-old sister of Bloody Bill Anderson, one of Quantrill's men. In August of 1873, she, her 10-year-old sister, and other female relatives of Quantrill's men were imprisoned in a building on Grand Avenue in Kansas City that was owned by George Caleb Bingham. It was rented to the Union Army. Unfortunately, on August 13th, the building collapsed, killing 4 of the women. Of the 4, only Josephine Anderson is buried here in Union Cemetery. A week later, due to his anger, Quantrill's men sacked Lawrence, Kansas, and destroyed and murdered many people in that town. Richard H. Nelson was born in Virginia in 1812. After living in Kentucky and Illinois, he moved to this area around 1854, where he invested heavily in real estate. When he died in 1884, he was considered to be one of the wealthiest men in the Kansas City area. One of the most famous people resting here at Union Cemetery is John Calvin McCoy. McCoy is recognized as a foundational figure in the history of Kansas City and is often referred to as its father. His contributions as a land surveyor, entrepreneur, and civic leader played a pivotal role in the city's early development. Born in 1811 in Vincennes, Indiana, McCoy was the son of Isaac McCoy, a Baptist missionary. In 1827, he studied land surveying at Transylvania College in Lexington, Kentucky. And in 1830, McCoy accompanied his family to the Kansas City area to support his father's missionary work among Native American tribes. In 1833, McCoy established a 2-story cabin that served as both a general store and his residence on the northeast corner of what is now Westport Road and Pennsylvania Avenue. This location became known as Westport, and it was so named because it was the last settlement before travelers ventured into Kansas territory. He also developed Westport Landing on the Missouri River to help facilitate trade and transportation. In 1838, McCoy was among 14 investors who founded the town of Kansas by purchasing land from Gabriel Prudhomme's estate. They plotted the area into 318 lots, and in 1853, the town was officially chartered by the state of Missouri, later adopting the name Kansas City. During the Civil War, McCoy's Confederate sympathies led to his departure from Kansas City. His son Spencer enlisted in the Confederate Army and was killed in June of 1863 during the Civil War. After the war, McCoy returned to Kansas City, where he continued his business ventures. He was a founding member of the Old Settlers Historical Society in 1871 and was active in preserving the history of the region. McCoy passed away in 1889 and is interred here in Union Cemetery. Next to McCoy's grave is that of another famous Missourian, George Caleb Bingham. Bingham was a highly influential American artist, politician, and Missouri native, best known for his detailed depictions of 19th century frontier life along the Missouri River. He is often called the Missouri artist or the painter of the Missouri frontier. Bingham was born in 1811 in Augusta County, Virginia, and moved with his family to Franklin, Missouri in 1826. He had little formal art training but developed his skills by studying nature, observing local life, and copying prints and engravings. Bingham became famous for his genre paintings portraying the everyday lives of settlers, boatmen, and political gatherings along the Missouri River. His work today is valued for its historical accuracy, careful observation, and insightful social commentary. Bingham was also active in Missouri politics as a member of the Whig Party and later aligned with the Democratic Party. He served in the Missouri legislature between 1840 and 1843 and again in 1850. During the Civil War, he was a Union supporter, and after the war, he served in the Missouri House of Representatives. Bingham continued to paint throughout much of his life, balancing art with political and business responsibilities, and he died in 1879 here in Kansas City. Dr. Johnston Likens was a pioneering Baptist missionary, physician, and civic leader whose contributions significantly shaped early Kansas City. He is recognized as the city's second mayor and is honored as a founder of the community. Born in 1800 in Virginia, Likens grew up in Kentucky and Indiana, and at the age of 16, he apprenticed with a doctor in Vincennes, Illinois, where he met Baptist missionary Isaac McCoy. In 1819, Likens began working with McCoy, teaching Native American children and later becoming a missionary. He moved to the Kansas City area in the early 1800s. In fact, in 1831, he purchased about 16 acres in the settlement of Kansas, which is now Kansas City. He co-founded the Town of Kansas Company along with McCoy and passed away in 1876. Thomas J. Goforth was born in 1804 in Cincinnati. He married Eliza Matthews in 1826. They moved to Missouri in 1837 and to Westport in 1853. He originally was a sign painter and later practiced law. He was also elected mayor of Westport in 1857 and again in 1859. After the Civil War, he was elected 4 more times as mayor during the 1870s. Hattie Moore was born in Kentucky in 1834. She married G.W. Moore, a merchant in Louisville, in 1851. They moved to this area around 1860. Mrs. Moore took an active role in the charitable and reformatory institutions of Kansas City. In 1889, she was appointed police matron, and in 1893 was one of the first women commissioners in the World's Fair in Chicago, Illinois. Elizabeth Duncan Porter was a Revolutionary War heroine and one of the earliest settlers in the Kansas City area. Born in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, Elizabeth Duncan married Samuel Porter in 1773. In June of 1780, during the Revolutionary War, she and her family were captured at Martin Station, now a site in Kentucky, by British forces and allied Shawnee Indians. They were marched to Quebec, Canada, where Elizabeth was held prisoner until the war's end in 1782. Her husband, Samuel Porter, served as a private in the Virginia militia during the war. After the war, Elizabeth and Samuel Porter had several children. In 1832, their son, Reverend James Porter, moved to the Kansas City area, bringing Elizabeth with them. She became one of the first Protestants in the region, participating in the first Protestant service held in the area, which took place in a forest near 2nd and Walnut Streets in what is now Kansas City. Elizabeth Duncan Porter passed away in 1845. Jacob Reagan was born in Kentucky in 1792 and served in the Kentucky militia during the War of 1812. He married Anna Carter and moved to this area around 1837. The Reagan farm of about 12 acres stretched from what is now 31st to 37th Streets and Oak and Homes in Kansas City. It was purchased for about $1,000. Reagan was one of the original purchasers of the Prudhomme estate, establishing Kansas City as a city itself in Missouri. We're now walking past what are known as the holding crypts here at Union Cemetery. These are public receiving vaults, and they're historical structures that were used to temporarily store bodies during winter months when the ground was too frozen to dig graves. These vaults were essential in the 19th and early 20th century, especially in regions like Kansas City with very harsh winters. This is the crypt of the family of Allen Burr Harrison McGee. McGee was a prominent early settler and entrepreneur in the Kansas City area, particularly in Westport, Missouri during the mid 19th century. He was the eldest son of James Hyatt McGee, who moved from Kentucky to Jackson County, Missouri in 1828. In 1833, at the age of 18, McGee purchased about 160 acres of land from Richard W. Cummins, marking his early investment in the region. By 1839, he had established a 160-acre farm just north of Westport. In 1846, he constructed a Sac and Fox Indian Agency in Westport, which he operated for 3 years before selling his interest and acquiring a mercantile store previously owned by one of the city founders, John McCoy. He expanded the store and transformed it into a hotel, unofficially known as the Catfish House, renowned for its chef's specialty of fresh fried catfish. McGee married Christina Fry, a sister of his first wife, in 1848. After her passing in 1867, he married Susan B. Gill, the daughter of Colonel Marcus Gill. Together they had 2 children. In 1882, McGee began selling portions of his land to make way for the Kansas City Exposition Grounds, and by 1884 he constructed a prestigious vault for his family here at Union Cemetery and relocated his immediate family from their original McGee burial grounds to this new site. McGee played a significant role in the development of the Kansas City area. He was instrumental in the establishment of the Kansas City Exposition Grounds, which later became the site of the Kansas City Interstate Fairgrounds. His contributions to the community and his family legacy are commemorated in the names of the Roanoke and Valentine neighborhoods here in Kansas City, which were developed on land once owned by McGee. Milton J. Payne was a 5-term mayor of early Kansas City. He secured Kansas City's first $100,000 bond issue for public improvements. He also was the first city official to do anything about the horrible street conditions in town. Payne was a member of the original Union Cemetery Association. We're now passing by what are known as the Chinese grave sites. A large Chinese population has existed in Kansas City for many years, and there are a number of Chinese burial plots here in Union Cemetery. These four tombstones are what survive here at this particular site. These sites are very rare in cemeteries in the Midwest because most Chinese, upon their death, were sent back to China to be buried with their ancestors. Joseph Loeffler was born in Germany and came to St. Louis with his parents as a boy. At the outset of the Civil War, he enlisted in the 1st Missouri Volunteers and served at the siege of Vicksburg, where he was injured. He came to Kansas City in 1865, where he worked as a bricklayer. In 1876, he and his friend Charles opened the first of Joe and Charlie's saloons, for which they became well known. The Loeffler Monument that we see today is an example of those erected by members of the Woodmen of the World, which was an early insurance company in the United States. The tall height of the monument indicates that a man of mature years died at the time of his death. The snapped-off hanging branch on the side indicates that his wife, who was called Rosa, died before him. The ivy is a symbol of immortality, and the mushrooms are a symbol of rebirth. I hope you've enjoyed this Wandering Walks of Wonder tour here at Union Cemetery in Kansas City, Missouri. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and we will see you on our next Wandering Walks of Wonder adventure. Take care now. Bye-bye.